the past.
I can't help it. My present is so affected by it.
And after you hear what I have to say, you'll be assured of a bright future.
Yeah, what have you got for me? The Sledgehammer concession at San Quentin?
Look, I can promise you that your interest in Hollister Mall will be protected, nurtured, and waiting for you when you're released from prison.
In exchange for what?
You just keep my name out of this case. Nancy's too.
You must be joking.
I never joke about money.
Sorry, Harold, I'm not interested.
George, do you have any idea what kind of figures we're talking about here?
I don't care if it's $50 million. It still isn't enough to rob me of the satisfaction of taking you down with me.
My turn.
Okay, hotshot.
Drum roll, please. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for my next trick.
You're going to clean it up.
Have confidence in your man, woman. Drum roll, please. You spoiled sport. 1, 2, and 3. Oh, my goodness.
I'd really prefer it if you use this.
Yeah, this is nasty.
Yeah.
Thanks. Well.
You do that well.
So I've been told.
You're a man of many talents.
Yeah, I've been told that too.
By someone you know well.
Intimately, little lady, yes, I've been told that too.
You know, I'd never dreamed we'd be here like this again.
Oh? I dreamed it, but I didn't believe it. Guess we're never too old to have our dreams come true.
You know, Jimmy prayed that we'd get back together.
Mom did too.
And me.
You come on. I guess I could go to work late.
Maybe you could take the day off.
It's not a bad idea.
And maybe we can go up into the mountains like we did before.
No, you're not gonna get me to go on that camping trip. I'm not gonna go through what I went through before. No way. No. Nope. No, Carla. Well, I suppose I could think of something, huh?
Sure.
Yeah.
And you just let me handle the eggs.
How hell you
Oh, no.
George, I think you're being just a little bit hasty here. Now, you haven't even heard what I came to tell you yet.
All I want to hear from you is goodbye.
George, I came here to offer you my help.
That's what got me here in the first place, remember?
We're not going to get anywhere at all if you keep bringing up the past.
I can't help it. My present is so affected by it.
And after you hear what I have to say, you'll be assured of a bright future.
Yeah, what have you got for me? The Sledgehammer concession at San Quentin?
Look, I can promise you that your interest in Hollister Mall will be protected, nurtured, and waiting for you when you're released from prison.
In exchange for what?
You just keep my name out of this case. Nancy's too.
You must be joking.
I never joke about money.
Sorry, Harold, I'm not interested.
George, do you have any idea what kind of figures we're talking about here?
I don't care if it's $50 million. It still isn't enough to rob me of the satisfaction of taking you down with me.
George, you're not being reasonable.
Well, I suppose I'm not, but people in my position aren't expected to be.
That's just the point. You're not always going to be in this position. You got to plan for the future.
I did make plans, Harold. Would you like to hear what they are? It's a very tidy list, a politician's dream. And by the way, my friend, I was right on schedule.
The new plans can always be made, but not without money.
Well, money isn't important. Power is. You've robbed me of that. You've robbed me of something that I cannot replace, my reputation.
You knew the consequences when you took the risk.
Now, what about your plans, Harold? Could they take a break of, say, 10 years or so?
Being vindictive isn't going to get you anywhere.
I don't care where it gets me. I care where it gets you.
You don't think that I'll really protect your interest, isn't that it? George, I promise I will.
Honor among thieves, right?
It's not exactly the way I'd put it, but something like that, yeah.
The more I hear you talk about honor, the more I see yours flying right out the window.
George, please help.
No. The answer is no. Come on, Harold. You know that Vince owns 51% of Hollister Mall? He can protect any part of my interest in the project.
You've already confessed, haven't you? You already named Nancy and me as accomplices.
Not yet, but that's one of the few things that I've got left to look forward to.
Well, how's the most important man in the county this morning?
I don't know, he hasn't been in.
Well, I couldn't start the day without paying a visit to my favorite public servant.
Okay, Jason, now what are you gonna ask me to do now?
Am I the kind of a guy that acts like that?
Jason Prescott, the contractor, isn't. But Jason Prescott, the commissioner?
No, seriously, Gene. I just want you to know that your fine work on the contracts for the county paving didn't go unnoticed.
You telling me? Commissioner Hayes wasn't too happy that I pushed him through so quickly.
Well, of course not. Old sleight-of-hand Hayes was looking to tack on an extra section of highway for his department. You didn't give him enough time.
Yeah, that's great. All I need is one more enemy in a high place.
Now, you can relax, Gene. You made a lot more friends on this one than enemies. Besides, the council was gearing up to fight him on it anyway. All you did was save the time.
Yeah, I can focus all of his unused energy on me.
You can relax. I'll keep an eye on that. Besides, a man as valuable as you isn't going to get beaten out on a thing as petty as that.
Well, thanks.
You know, as a matter of fact, speaking of cash value, that wasn't so petty. On my way over here, I was figuring out how much you saved the county with your efficiency.
Yeah?
And I totaled up 17,000 with interest rates. Yeah. And you can figure out how much it would have been if Hayes would have got what he wanted, not to mention the time of the council. It's easy to see why I'm impressed with your work.
You know, some of that is almost enough to pay for all the mayor's lunches this year.
Yeah, almost. How long you been on a job around here?
Well, about 8 months, I guess.
Yeah? You learn the ropes pretty quick.
Yeah, I come close to getting myself hung a couple of times in the process, too.
Ah, well, that's nothing. You happy?
Reasonably, but it's not exactly what I set out to do. But it's, I don't know, I'm performing a service for the public, though.
Well, there's other ways of doing that.
Sure, I suppose, but this is the only option that's open to me right now.
Well, I got to get off to the wars. Gene,
Okay.
you're a good man. And contrary to what people believe, good men don't go unnoticed. God bless.
Okay, Jason. Thanks a lot.
I'm afraid we're not quite finished with you, Miss Bellamy.
I don't understand. Didn't we cover everything before?
Most everything except exactly how involved you really were.
Sergeant, you're gonna arrest me, aren't you?
It's possible. The captain got wind of this whole scandal. Now he wants to press for blood. He wants to nail everybody that was involved. Sort of an in-house example for all the men that you mentioned on Slaymaker's payroll.
I was so foolish. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised.
I did say that I couldn't promise you immunity.
I know. And I said I wasn't going to hold out for it. Well, where do you want me to start?
Slaymaker's phone call.
George called me and said he was sending somebody over.
Did he say who?
Not at the time. I know now that it was Norm Elliott.
Go on.
Well, he said it was for personal business and that I should just open the box that he asked for.
Wait a minute. You mean he didn't have his own key?
I'm sure he did, but he seldom has the time to do things that he can delegate to others.
Has he ever done it before?
Yes.
Got you to get into a private box like this?
Yes, that's why I didn't think it was so unusual.
Okay, so then what happened?
Well, so then Norm Elliott showed up.
And you weren't suspicious even then?
No.
You didn't know he had a record?
No, all I knew is that he worked for George.
What did Elliot do then?
Well, he showed me the box number.
Whose was it?
I didn't know.
Not even when you got the key?
No, I used my master's. So I didn't need to check. I just opened the box, turned my back on him. It was very simple, very fast. Sergeant, that's all there was to it. I didn't even remember about this incident until everything surfaced. Please, believe me.
I do, Miss Bellamy. I'm sorry I had to put you through all that. I had to be sure. Now I'm going to do everything that I can to help you.
Isn't this better than bickering?
Much.
You know, when you think of all those moments during the past few weeks that we could have been together but stayed apart because of,
Selfishness.
Oh, thank you. I talked to Harold before I left the office. He saw Slaymaker this morning.
Oh, so, how did it go?
Not very well, I'm afraid. George hasn't talked, but Harold couldn't get any promises out of him.
Charles, what is that supposed to mean?
It means that we're not out of the woods yet.
Well, why do I get the feeling we keep on marching more into the woods?
I don't think it's too much to worry about. I know Slaymaker. I think what he's really trying to do is make us squirm a little bit, particularly Webster.
And you're helpless to do anything about it?
Nancy, I didn't mastermind you into this. It's going to take some time to get you out.
Out of what? Jail?
No. I'll do everything in my power to prevent that.
Well, I'm trusting you, Charles.
Actually, there is something else I want to discuss.
Oh, I can imagine.
It's Miriam.
Miriam is fine.
Nothing could be further from the truth.
Well, is that a criticism of how I've looked after her, Charles?
Under the circumstances, you've done a marvelous job.
You're right. You know, I've single-handedly kept that girl from losing her mind.
I know, and I'm very appreciative, but Miriam's losing ground.
Well, I'm open to suggestions. I mean, I've done everything short of putting her in a high chair and spoon-feeding her strained peaches.
I don't have any solutions. I don't know what to do.
You know the only solution we do have, Charles. You could afford to put her in a place where physically as well as mentally she could grow stronger.
I simply can't commit my daughter.
Why? What is it, some blemish on the impeccable Carpenter record? I mean, are you going to let family pride stand in the way of your only daughter?
Nancy, there have to be some other options.
There aren't. Look, Charles, I know it's not a pleasant thought, but you can't believe those horror stories you hear. And besides, you could visit her every day.
Would you mind tempering your enthusiasm just a little bit?
Hey, look, take that back. After all I've done for her...
I'm sorry, I do. It's just that the idea of Miriam in any kind of a hospital, like...
Psychiatric Rehabilitation Center?
I can't bear the thought. I simply couldn't live with myself. She's a carpenter, and carpenters are meant to succeed despite the odds. I will consider any other alternative there is except that one.
You can leave those for later, Carla.
Fine with me. I must admit I wasn't thinking about dishes when I chose my return to married life.
What were you thinking about?
Oh, you've been dying to ask me that one, haven't you?
Well, just one question and we can leave it at that. When you came back, were you planning on staying?
Well, Mama, I came back to get Jimmy.
Oh, I know how the story goes. I want what's behind the headlines.
You know, I learned a lot about the Lord I asked into my life so many years ago. He doesn't quit, even when I did.
You know, I was hoping you'd say that.
Now, I'm not talking about a second Damascus Road. Just a persistent tug. A small light inside of me that shined brighter than any marquee and twice as captivating.
Then you were planning to stay all along.
It was more of a spy mission to see how much Jimmy had grown and whether or not Jean had. Did he ask about me when I was gone?
Oh, he was too much of a child to forget his only love, but too much of a man to talk about it.
I should have known he could be so stubborn.
And we all know how rare that is around here.
The measure you use on others
Will be used on you.
You know, Mama, Jimmy's questions I could handle. And Jean's arguments, and even my managers bothering me about contracts. But the one thing that I couldn't ignore, the one thing that just kept breaking through, was Jesus.
Carla.
It's the glow, the peace. When I was in LA, I met a lot of singers well past their prime. They invested their whole lives in themselves, and I watched the return of those investments firsthand. Cynicism, skin cracked by one too many suntans and voices shot. But with Jesus, I can mature, where they'll just decay.
Oh, don't know how I needed to hear this. It's the answer to my prayers.
Oh, well, now I know, Mama, what those prayers were for. I've met him. And it's about time he and I got reacquainted.
George, I'm disappointed in you. Why did you give Webster such a hard time?
I don't need him.
I think it's time you look at this whole thing from a different angle.
Is that what you came here for, to get me to change my mind?
I came here to get you to look at the facts. You're here by your own device. I'm simply trying to repair the damage.
Well, that obviously doesn't include arranging my release.
Even I have my limits, George.
Vince Cardello incapable of something. What'll people think?
That foolish men sometimes dig holes too deep, even for the ropes of reasonable men.
You really expect me to shut up about this?
Yes. George, a minor scandal like this sometimes has a tendency to spiral upward. There's no telling who might be affected by this.
Charles Carpenter, for example?
Charles Carpenter is a good example. To the general public, Charles Carpenter is Hollister Mall.
And Nancy Lawson is Charles Carpenter's mistress. You know, I don't like to admit my faults, Vince, but I've overlooked something. You've given me something else to talk about. I could take them all down. Anyway, you don't really care if I implicate Webster in this Lawson woman.
What concerns my associates concerns me.
I'd do you a favor by getting rid of Webster.
That's where you're wrong. Webster has his uses.
Corrupt attorneys are hard to find.
When they're as easily controllable as him, yes. George, you better face the facts. You're going to be out of circulation for quite a while, and there's no way to avoid that. But if you go quietly and don't take anyone with you, I can give you my personal guarantee that when you get out, you'll be a very rich man.
Vince, I am surprised at you going out of your way to defend the likes of Charles Carpenter and Harold Webster.
I have my reasons. Look, Hollister Mall is too big for me to manage by myself. I wouldn't if I could. George, I'll promise you something else. If you go quietly, when you get out, I'll do everything in my power to get you back on your feet politically. Now, what do you say?
Okay. I won't talk.
Did Daddy really say that he wanted to have dinner with me?
Yeah, he really did, Miriam, on Friday.
Oh, good. Well, I want to look so nice for him because I really want him to like me again.
Well, you just relax and be yourself, and this little plan of mine will work just
Well,
fine.
how did he tell you? I bet he just came right out and said, didn't he, that he said, I think it's time that I take my little girl out on the town again. I bet that's just what he did, didn't he?
Something like that.
Well, what, is it late? I don't want to be late yet.
Miriam, it's not for 2 days.
Well, a girl can't be ready too early when her daddy wants to take her out. See? How do I look?
Just fine.
What? Come on, what? Is something wrong?
No.
I'm not pretty enough. That's it, isn't it?
You're just fine, Miriam. Just fine.
No, you're just trying to be nice, Nancy. And let me see. Maybe a little more.
many times do I have to yell at you? Wake up! Come on! All right, you asked for it. Got it.
Hey!
Hey yourself, Buster. Room service is gonna be here.
You know, this is the movies you'd wake me up with a kiss.
I would I? Okay. Now come on, get up. It's almost afternoon.
Did I turn into a prince?
I'll let you know when I hear the finished album. Now come on, David, rise and shine.
Oh,
come on.
Sure you haven't taken some of my little red pills?
I'm positive, and you don't need that junk either. Room service. Wait till you see what I ordered. You were going to eat a decent meal for once. Stick with me, and I'll make a real man out of you.